Hi, I'm Shelby. Welcome to Shelby Reads and welcome to us bed rotting for today. This is Aaliyah. If you're new to my channel, my name is Shelby. This is Shelby Reads, where I talk about Sapphic books all day, every day. This is Ginger. Thank you guys for all the support you gave me on my last video. Please don't speak to me about my private life for a while. You know how lesbian breakups and relationships in general go. It's messy a lot of times. I feel like we've had some good communication. We understand each other a bit better now. Are we still getting divorced? I don't know. Don't ask me. Probably. I don't know. But my point is that it's none of your business either way for now, and I will let you guys know about my personal stuff when I feel like it. So today we're going to be talking about my reading wrap up for November of 2025. You can see part of the stack of books over there. If you want to hear more about Sapphic books, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps the channel and it will help me get out of a job I hate very much. Honestly, I was interviewing for what I thought was like a stay-at-home position, which I was really excited about, but it turned out to be a scam. And I'm pretty miffed about it, but it is how it is. The job market is awful out here. So the first book that I read for the month of November was The Warden by Danielle M. Ford. This is an adult fantasy novel and it is part of a trilogy. There was a plan. She had the money, the connections, even the brains. It was simple. Become one of the only female necromancers, pass as many certifications as she could, get a post near the capital, then ... profit. The funny thing about plans is that they are seldom under your control. Now, Alice, a daughter of a noble house and a trained magister of the Lyceum, finds herself in the far-removed village of Lone Pine, mending fences and delivering baby goats, serving people who want nothing to do with her. But not all is well in Lone Pine, and as the villagers Alice is reluctantly getting to know start to behave strangely, Alice begins to suspect that there is far greater need for a warden of her talents than she previously thought. Old magics are restless, and an insignificant village on the furthest border of the kingdom might hold secrets far beyond what anyone expected. Alice might be the only person standing between one of the greatest evils ever known and the rest of the free world. Can you lay down? Your tail is in the way. Why don't do things in bed? Good girl, nice. What I will say about this book is that it's much more of like a cozy fantasy read than like an actual kind of like, I don't know how else to describe it, like epic fantasy where they go and do lots of stuff. I mean, she's doing a lot of stuff, but it feels more in line to me with Legends and Lattes or You Can't Spell Treason Without Tea. I liked being in the head of someone who was an expert in her field, who was like highly academic, being put in a setting that is so far removed from anything she's used to, not to mention she was noble born. So she doesn't necessarily know as much about this kind of rural life that she's having to be a part of now. I will say one thing that kind of disappointed me is that necromancy isn't really like necromancy in like a locked tomb sense or some of the other books I'm going to talk about in this list. Necromancy is very much like the actual raising of dead bodies is prohibited, and while I understand why in this world, I feel like it's weird to just like call yourself a necromancer when you don't do that. Now, I know she can do it, and I know that there is like a historical context in this book as to why they don't raise dead bodies anymore. I understand that. I just wish they had changed the name, because most of the magic she kind of does is more either healing related, which I guess you could count as necromancy in this world, and then she's also like proficient in other magics, so it's kind of like there's not a lot of necromancy. And when we get to the end, spoiler if you don't want to see it, well, there is a necromancer villain, but I really love necromancy and I'm tired of it kind of being like a subplot that only the villains do. Again, I know she can use necromancy, but the question is, will she? Probably not. Disappointing. Do necromancy. Now, I do think that the sapphic romance between Alice and Marianne is really cute. I especially kind of like how when Marianne shows up on the scene, Alice forgets about her two lovers from the city immediately. I kind of really liked that. And even though it's written by a man, I didn't find it to be fetishizing. I found the romance to be quite sweet. The sex is off page. I really did enjoy this book. It wasn't perfect, but it was pretty high up on my list. I didn't have a lot of like amazing reads this month, I gotta warn you. I gave this book 4.25 out of 5 stars on Storygraph and Pagebound. You guys should also check out my Pagebound, not sponsored obviously, but I do like actual updates in forums and stuff that you can see if you ever want to see me being like snarky or funny in the middle of a book. Pagebound is where to go. The next book I read for November was Cursed by Malignant Magic by Jenesis St. Clare. I have a full rant review on this one. Please go check that out if you want. It's my best performing video right now. Good for me. Woo. It's an adult romantasy in a war-torn world of magic magic and power struggles, Kali, a young and mischievous battle mage, finds herself caught between the demands of her commanding officer, General Ahuna, and her own rebellious nature. Blessed or cursed with a unique magical ability and a sharp tongue, Kali constantly tests the limits of her authority, much to Ahuna's exasperation. Thrust into the heart of an escalating conflict, Kali must navigate the treacherous politics of the royal court, the prejudices of the noble-born guards, and the looming threat of a powerful malignant magic that could consume them all. As she is forced to confront her own past and the mysteries surrounding her origins, Kali must decide whether to embrace her role as a soldier or forge her own path, even if it means defying those she has sworn to protect. In this captivating fantasy adventure, the reader is drawn into a world where magic is both a gift and a curse, and the line between duty and personal freedom is razor thin. Cursed by Malignant Magic promises a thrilling journey filled with intrigue, action, and the struggles of a young mage determined to carve out her own destiny. For fans of Magic Study, The Unbroken, and The Jasmine Throne, this Sapphic romance is book 7 in the Once Upon a Curse series. So this book is a Romeo and Juliet retelling, which was not evident really until like I saw people in positive reviews bringing it up. Also, like, there was a suicide fake out, spoilers I guess, but you don't want to read this book, I promise. And I went, oh my god, is this supposed to be like referencing Romeo and Juliet? Am I crazy? No, I wasn't crazy. It was just a terrible job at doing that. And it totally did not understand the point of Romeo and Juliet at any point in the book. Almost nothing from the synopsis happens. I need you to know that. Almost nothing. Zero. Zilch. Nada. Kali is one of the most annoying protagonists alive. She never tries anything different than what she would normally do. She is constantly making the absolute wrong decisions for no reason. She says at one point that she's in the military and a battle mage, and then there's one throwaway sentence in the middle where she says she's not conscripted, yet she hangs around in all these restricted areas that aren't actually restricted with the general. Why would they allow that? The magic system makes no sense. Nothing about any of it makes any sense. It was an awful book. The romance was terrible and rushed and like insta love. It was really fucking stupid. There was not a single thing I liked about this book. Anyway, this book is terrible, and if you want to see me rant about it for almost like 4 hours, I think, I have a rant review up on my channel. Go check it out. It's no surprise, but I gave this book 1 star. It's not good. The third book that I read was The Antlered King by Marianne Gordon. This is the second book in the Raven Trade duology. Helivir's gift to raise the dead once thrust her into the center of a court filled with backstabbing and treason, where she became duty-bound to protect Princess Sullivan, the sole heir to the kingdom's throne and target of many rivals eager for the crown. But the more Helivir risked to keep Sullivan alive, and the more deeply she fell in love with the princess, the greater the cost became. For Helivir's power can only be granted by the strange figure who rules the afterlife, and there is always a price to pay. Now Helivir may have risked too much, and Sullivan has become obsessed with consolidating power to vanquish her foes once and for all, by whatever means necessary. Cast out to the fringes of a country on the verge of civil war, Helivir is torn between protecting her heart or giving what little she has left to finish what she started. Yet her connection with Sullivan runs deeper than the mortal world, and saving her friends and family might mean risking the woman she is still bound to by soul and blood. To stop a war, Helivir must unravel the last of death's riddles and decide once and for all who deserves to live, what a life is worth, and whether she can pay the price. This explosive finale to the Raven's Trade duology is sure to satisfy fans of dark fantasy and queer romance. I finished reading this book on my birthday. It destroyed me. I was sobbing from like 2 a.m. to 4:30 a.m. Like, it was so deeply upsetting, but so incredibly good. So if you haven't read the first one, it's called The Gilded Crown, and necromancy takes like a huge, insane cost, and not everyone can do it. Like, very few people can make this like deal with death and figure out how to do it. And she did it when she was a kid first in the first book by raising her mom from the dead, and then eventually like she raises the princess, and then all hell starts to break loose, and she starts to get these feelings for this princess who is selfish and very, very damaged. But I felt like this book had a lot to say about like empathy and the value of life in general, and who deserves to have another chance and who doesn't, and all this other stuff. And I feel like, I don't know, like it ended in the best way it possibly could have. Does that mean it ended super well? No. I adored this book. I cannot recommend this duology enough, especially if you like necromancy as much as me, if you really like The Locked Tomb. If you want to feel devastated this holiday season, please please pick up this freaking book, because I tried to talk to people about it on TikTok and no one talked to me about it. Why does no one know these books? Seriously though, I am dead serious. Please check out these books. These books are like 6-star reads for me. They're incredible. Like, this was one of my favorite books of the year. It was so emotionally devastating, and I feel like unlike a lot of, no offense, but like BookTok books, you know what I mean? Like some of them that really don't have any depth, they're really easy to read. This is not that. I think it's fairly easy to read, fairly straightforward. However, there is so much emotional depth in this story. Again, I was sobbing. I haven't sobbed this hard at a book. Like, I've cried a bit at a book. Like, the last book I remember crying at the end of was Where Darkness Blooms by Andrea Hannah. I don't know if it's Hannah or Hannah. I don't know. But it's spelled like Hannah, but it feels wrong, you know? But I wasn't sobbing, you know? Like, I cried a bit at Honey Girl also by Morgan Rogers. That was a really good book, but this is the one. This one made me bawl my eyes out. I have not bawled this hard since Harrow the Ninth. So especially if you loved Harrow the Ninth, which is my favorite in the Locked Tomb, I think that you would really love this one. This one has it all. It's devastating. The fourth book I read for November is The Difference Between Me and You by Madeleine George. This is a YA from, I want to say 2012. Jessie cuts her own hair with a Swiss Army knife. She wears big green fisherman's boots. She's the founding and only member of No Law, the national organization to liberate all weirdos. Emily wears sweaters with faux pearl buttons. She's vice president of the student council. She has a boyfriend. These two girls have nothing in common except the passionate private time they share every Tuesday afternoon. Jessie wishes that their relationship could be out in the open, but Emily feels she has too much to lose. When they find themselves on opposite sides of a heated school conflict, they each have to decide what's more important, what you believe in or the one you love. So this book has been on my TBR for a really long time, probably since like a little bit after it came out, to be perfectly honest with you. And it is always exciting to see like a YA book with a butch lead. That's always really fun, and I really wanted to like this book. Unfortunately, the truth of the matter is I didn't. And I especially wanted to like this book because I got this off Thrift Books finally, you know. I was like, oh, I'll just finally do it. And it is signed to somebody from the author, which is super cool. I love seeing that kind of stuff. And again, this has been on my TBR for a really long time. However, I didn't like this book. I just didn't feel like there was any character development between Jessie or Emily. I don't think either of them developed as characters in the slightest. And that was extremely frustrating for a YA novel that was trying to deal with a lot of heavy topics. It was trying to deal with the homophobia of the time period. It was trying to deal with, you know, dating somebody who's in the closet who doesn't want to be seen with you. It also dealt with very conflicting, opposing worldviews, because there's like a Walmart in this book that is trying to like move its way into town, and Jessie and a bunch of other people in the town are really worried about how that will affect small businesses. It will make them go out of business, you know, that kind of stuff. But Emily is one of the people who's directly working with them to get them in the town, and neither of them actually change anything about their views on anything. Neither of them have to like actually deal with things. And I feel like you could, if you squint, I guess you could say Jessie had some character development, because spoilers for the end, she and Emily don't stay together. They stop seeing each other, and Emily stays with her boyfriend. So on one hand, I'm like, okay, Jessie finally decided to like stick to her values, but we gotta keep it 1,000. It's really only because Emily was like, I don't want to make out for a while. I don't want that, you know? And Emily never really had to confront her actual worldviews and change any of them. And I know that that might be realistic. I know that in real life, it might really happen this way. These two people have been making out and almost hooking up for almost, I think it was like a year or so, but they don't have anything in common, and one of them is never going to give up their boyfriend or their social status. I understand that that's reality sometimes. That doesn't mean it's good to read. It doesn't mean it's fun to read. That doesn't mean that like I enjoyed any of it. I didn't enjoy any of it. I don't feel like anyone had any real character growth. I would not recommend this book. I'm sorry. I didn't like it. I gave this book 2.25 stars out of 5 on Storygraph. Wasn't for me. I know that I'm not the target audience. However, I read a lot of YA, and there's some coming up on this list that I really really did enjoy, I didn't enjoy this. I think that YA kids are smarter than this. I was 18 in 2012, and let me tell you, I don't think I would have liked this even then. I don't think I would have. So even though I wanted to like it, I do think I'm going to be selling this back to thrift books at some point. I might make a video showing all the books I'm selling back to thrift books because I think it's fun, but yeah, not for me. The next book I read was Tangled Encounters by Madison Nicole. This was a adult romance. Ozzy is looking for a new circus to join. She quit her old one with a dramatic flourish because they were a bunch of a-holes and is in desperate need of finding another place to perform. Sir Callisto seems like the perfect fit. They need a juggler and Ozzy is the best, except the teeny tiny issue that one of the performers just seems to actually hate her. It's not like Ozzy meant to be an awkward mess when they first met, but she was a little starstruck. How could you not be when you just watched the absolute best aerial hoop performance you've ever seen with the most beautiful woman alive, bewitching you with her musicality and athleticism? Jess is in desperate need of a new duo partner. Unfortunately, the only person who can keep up with her on the aerial hoop is the newest member of Sir Callisto, Ozzy. There's nothing inherently wrong with her, it's just that every time they have accidentally touched, Ozzy acts like she burned her hand on Jess's skin. It's rude and uncalled for. Why wasn't there anyone else? To make matters worse, in a moment of desperation, Jess told her ex that she and Ozzy were dating, and now things are even weirder. Fake dating or duo partner wasn't really in the cards for either of them, but slowly fake dating turns into something more that neither one of them can no longer ignore, but old wounds and pesky exes seem to keep getting in their way no matter how hard the two of them try to keep those things at bay. You can't run away from your past forever. Will they be able to overcome their own demons or simply destroy their relationship in the process? It's up to the two of them to find out. I have a rant review up about this one too. Please go check that out if you're interested. This one wasn't actually that bad. It's just that there were some things in it that gave me the ick. Again, go check out the rant review if you're really interested. But also aside from that, there was a really big third act breakup, which I loathe and I'm sick of reading because it's in almost every romance book and it's formulaic and boring. It's boring at this point. I'm so sick of third act breakups. I would try another book by this author because I thought the premise was interesting. I did have an overall pretty good time and the sex scenes didn't gross me out. So I would give this author another try. I really would. I gave this book 3.5 out of 5 stars. Pretty good, like better than average, but it needed some help for sure. The next book I read was The Last Bookstore on Earth by Braun-Arnold. This I read for my book club, my Sapphic book club, and it is a YA science fiction book. The world is about to end again. It's been a year since a devastating storm ripped Liz's world apart. Haunted by the memory of those she couldn't save, Liz is holed up in the only place she felt safe before her world fell away, the bookstore where she used to work. Now she spends her days trading books for supplies and collecting stories from the remaining survivors who pass by, until she learns that another earth-shattering storm is coming. ... And everything changes. Enter Maeve, a spiky out-of-towner who breaks into the bookstore looking for shelter one night. When Maeve's secrets and Liz's inner demons come back to haunt them both, they find themselves fighting for their lives and asking themselves one big question. As the end of the world approaches, is there time for one final love story? My book club hated this book and I hated it like a little less than them. Like, almost everyone gave it a 1 star. A lot of them didn't finish. I did end up finishing it. I understand why they hated this book because I hated a lot of this book too. I feel like there was very little character development overall. I feel like the main character was really never forced outside of her comfort zone, not really. And the thing about this book that really got to me is that it is so millennial cringe sounding, right? Like there's a lot of references that you're like, oh, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. And the author is actually Gen Z and is still in college. This is her first book. So you guys can't blame us millennials this one time because it wasn't us. It wasn't us. And one of the things that really disgusted me, again, check out my page bound because I literally wrote about it, is that she said that frosting is the best part of cake and that made me want to die. That's what really cemented my opinion about this book. And look, if you like frosting, more power to you, I guess. But I don't like most cake as it is. I'm very picky and that just like grossed me out. Also, the main character is very annoying. She has this bit where she like speaks in alien, but I didn't even catch it, probably because I was still upset about the Antlered King. But also like to me, I just thought she was talking in wingdings for no reason. Like that font wingdings, I was like, I don't know what we're doing. I don't know why we're doing this. This is dumb. The only reason I bumped this up from a 1 star is honestly because, spoilers for here, there's one scene where her sister is dying. It's when her sister and parents are dying in the storm, and her sister's like flesh is like melting off her bones, and it's described so well and so interestingly. Like, I think that this author, if she just like got out of the weird millennial cringe, I think that she could be an okay author. Maybe she should dip her toes into horror. I don't know. But then I also wanted to knock it down a star because more people melted toward the end, but we didn't even get to see it. That was my favorite part of the book. What do you mean I didn't get to see anybody melt? What the hell? The main character also just did dumb assery consistently. Like, she stuck her hand in a generator that she was trying to get running and then like shredded her arm or whatever. And I'm like, why would you do that? My cousin did that like inside a tractor when he and his brother were trying to get it started, and he had to get his fingers like reattached, by the way. But he was like 8 or 9 max. So like, you being an 18-year-old doing that dumb shit? No, like, I think you're stupid. I think you're stupid, and I did enjoy it. I gave this book 2 out of 5 stars. Again, the flesh melting scene really did it for me, but the rest of it, no. It was a giant no. It was a no. The next book I read was Bewitch. Has 2 authors. It's by Paige, McKenzie, and Nancy Ohlin. This is a YA like fantasy kind of book. When the new girl in school joins a group of teen witches, she and her friends must team up with a rival coven to take down a mysterious killer. New girl and secret witch Iris just wants to get through her first day of school without a panic attack. The last thing she expects is to be taken in by a coven of 3 witches: soft-spoken Greta, thoughtful and musical Ridley, and fiery and spirited Binks. They may be the first witches Iris has met IRL, but their coven is not alone in their small northwestern town. The Triad is the other coven at their school. When the Triad's not using spells to punish their exes or break up happy couples for fun, they practice dark magic. The 2 covens have a rivalry stretching all the way back to junior high. When tragedy strikes and one of their own is murdered, the rival covens must band together to find out who is responsible before it's too late. Someone's anti-witch ideology has turned deadly, ... and one of them is next. With an inclusive cast of teen witches who leap off the page with style, attitude, and charm, Bewitch is a bingeable read perfect for fans of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Mean Girls alike. I will say this is a duology. I have the second one. I bought the second one first because it was on the clearance in Books A Million, and then I like ordered this one from Thrift Books so that I could read both of them. I will say this came out in like 2017, but surprisingly it actually has a lot of similarities to the immigration stuff we have going on right now, where it's like people killing or kidnapping or whatever, because in this book being a witch is illegal. Being a witch is illegal. So there was a ton of things that I really liked about this book, and then there were some things that I was kind of like, I am still excited to read the second one, actually, surprisingly enough. See, I do like a lot of YA. I actually do. Crazy, I know. So let's go over things I like, and then I guess I'll do things I didn't. So things I really liked. I really liked that one of the main characters, Ridley, who is the black girl on the cover, she is... Goodbye, pillow. She is trans, but at the new school she's at with her friends, which is Binks and Greta. That's her name, right? They don't know that she's trans because she uses witchcraft to make herself look like a girl when she's at school, and then when she's at home and she's in the closet with her family, she looks like a boy. And she's purposely working on spells to make things more permanent, and I thought that was really cool and interesting. I also really loved that Binks, who is the Asian character, not only was like a technomancer, which I thought was really cool, she uses magic and technology together, which is super interesting. But I really liked how it seemed like she was really like kind of cringe because she was into like all this like very stereotypically Asian stuff, and her mom kind of calls her out on it at one point. It's kind of weird, but we learn towards the, I'd say like the last third of the book, that she does this on purpose so that people don't suspect she's a witch, because again, being a witch is illegal. And that's another point I really actually did like about these books, is that being a witch is illegal. So at the point they're at in the beginning of this book is that being a witch is illegal, but the law really isn't enforced. Typically, like, nothing really happens to you, but there is a new president who has been elected who wants to make it very, very enforced to the point of like maybe even like killing witches again. And there's also this group called Antima, which is like anti-magic. It feels a little bit too Antifa-y. However, it is clearly like a right-wing extremist group that these girls are like suspecting of killing the girl who dies in the book, right? And I thought it was weird like how much it almost like predicted a lot of the fucked up shit that's like going on now. I felt like it was very relevant still to right now, which is kind of crazy. This book accidentally predicted a whole bunch of shit. I don't know. And the most important thing that I really liked about this book is Div. Now, Div is the leader of the Triad. Her full name is Divinity, but she goes by Div. She is so like evil and like really mean girly. However, she has done necromancy, which as everyone knows is like my thing. She also has an albino boa that is her familiar that she like carries around and stuff. She is running around doing fucked up things, but she is getting the job done, whereas I feel like the other ones are not so much. She's on the cover of the next one, but my main complaint about this book, other than a couple kind of cringy reference type stuff, is that Div didn't have more POVs. And the other complaint I will say is that I did see people saying, and I agreed, like on Page Bound, that the POVs were a bit hard to differentiate. I will kind of agree. It took me a while to figure out who was who. I think that the people who have the most distinct POVs are Iris, because she's so incredibly anxious and like she has massive sensory problems, and Div, because Div is just kind of evil. Div would be really good friends with Ianthe Tridentarius from the Locked Tomb, or they would destroy each other. There is no in between. There's nothing. I think that if you like YA and you like magic stuff, you could really like this one. However, like, I don't think it's for everyone. I really liked it though. I'm excited about the next book, but I hope that there's more Div because I don't care about the other ones that much. I just gotta say it, I don't. And yeah, she's evil and pretended to have a crush on Greta for a while to like keep her in her coven or whatever. I don't really care. I know that sounds wrong. They're teenagers. I don't need them to be morally perfect or whatever. I like that she's interesting. I like that I can tell whose POV it is when I'm in it. I like that she has thoughts that make sense even though they're horrifying. I like her. I don't care. I give this book 4 out of 5 stars. I have high hopes for the next one. I hope it will be good. And the last book I read is also YA. It's Not Good for Maidens by Tori Bovalino. It is a YA fantasy and it's horror. I would say the horror elements are minimal in my opinion. Like, is it gross? Sure. Is it scary? No. But I'm also kind of desensitized, so maybe just like take what I say with a grain of salt because I watch horror all day. I put it on when I'm like trying to go to bed. I have like a whole horror movie wall on that side of the room. Like, take what I'm saying about that with a grain of salt, okay? Lou never believed in superstitions or magic until her teenage aunt Neela is kidnapped to the Goblin Market. The market is a place Lou has only read about. Twisted streets, offerings of sweet fruits and incredible jewels. Everything from the food and wares to the goblins themselves is a haunting temptation for any human who manages to find their way in. Determined to save Neela, Lou learns songs and spells and tricks that will help her navigate this dangerous world and slip past a goblin's defenses. But she only has 3 days to find Neela before the market disappears and her aunt becomes one of them forever. If she isn't careful, the market might just end up claiming her too. So, things about this book that I thought were really well done and interesting. I think it did generational trauma really well. I think her mother and her aunt not wanting to tell her things about what happened to them makes a lot of sense because it was deeply traumatic. I liked that this was dual POV, so it was in third person though, I think. Let me check. Yeah, it was third person in both POVs. However, the main POVs were Lou, who was the daughter slash niece of the two characters who had the really traumatic things happen in the Goblin Market. However, I also really liked that she's asexual and she was really trying to figure out how she is as a person by herself, because Neela is her aunt, but they're like basically the same age, and she really kind of constructed her life around Neela because her mom and her aunt are so close that she felt like she needed someone else. So even though she's asexual and she's not interested in romance, she's still trying to like prove her self-worth through other people almost, I would say. It's very interesting. And then the other POV is her aunt May, who had the most traumatic stuff happen in the Goblin Market. Now, there is with the Aunt May, a lot of flashbacks to like 18 years before, a lot of like, how do I put this? A lot of like monster romance is happening with the aunt and another character who's a goblin. I will say, I thought the romance was well done and cute and like good. However, because of the creepy illustration of the goblin, it was so hard for me to imagine how you like fell in love with her. I'm not saying that like you can't fall in love with monsters or personalities or whatever, but like I just think it's because this specific illustration is like disgusting, which like good job illustrator, I suppose. Like my brain is like, how are you kissing this creature? My brain can't comprehend it. And also like the goblin she's in love with, like her physical state gets worse at one point in the books and you find out why and it makes a lot of sense. But like that's just like what I want to say is like, I don't know about that, chief. However, I do think it was overall a well-written book. It felt slow in some places, but I still had a good time. So I would still like recommend this book. I thought it was a very solid YA fantasy. I had a really good time and I felt like it was really entrenched in like British fairy like and fae stuff. And I did enjoy that about this book. Again, did I find it scary? No, but I don't really find much scary anymore. Even horror movies, most of the time, I just find them gross or like, haha, that looked really bad, you know? There's very few like horror movies that I find scary anymore. It's just, you get desensitized after a while. I should probably take like a long break and then come back or something. I don't know. Okay, so for November, I read 8 books and it was 2,475 pages. I mostly read books that were under 300 or were 300 to 499 pages range. They were all fiction. They were all sapphic. I read 50-50. It says print and digital, but I don't think that's right. It's because it's not. I'll have to fix it. Because I was going to say I only read 2 digital, so that would be crazy. That wouldn't make any sense. I'll fix the graph at some point. My average rating for the month of November was 3.25 stars. Overall, it was a really good month, and that brought me up to 95 out of my 100 book goal. I'm still ahead by 3 books, yay me. I'm gonna keep on keeping on. I have a bunch of Christmas books that are on the docket, not just for this channel, but for lots of stuff in general, you know, just to read them. I don't like Christmas romances because I don't care about Christmas, but I'm gonna do it anyway, and you guys are gonna hear about a lot of those, so keep an eye out for that. I hope you guys are having a great week. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me if you read any of these books, what you think about them. I hope you guys have a great week. I'm gonna try to get some rant reviews up later, but thank you so much. I hope I see you guys in the next one. Bye!